Hi, my name is Sage. If you follow this channel for any length of time, you probably see there's a little different format than my normal thing. I kind of wanted to do a little bit of like face-to-face time with the camera or audience or whatever, talking about one specific question. That question is why I choose van life. So that's the question we're going to be answering in this video today. Before we really get into that question in particular, I feel like we should take a step back and define the term van life, because I think that it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, so I don't want to be saying it in this video and having it mean something different to you than what it actually means to me. And the reason that I want to do that is because I personally feel like there's a pretty big disparity between my life and then the lifestyle that I see on like Instagram under the hashtag van life. And that is kind of like the general picture of what van life is. And it seems to be a little bit at odds with the life that I actually live. So if you don't know, I've been living in vehicles and trailers for about the last 3.5 years. Honda Element, an Airstream, and now this van again. And I look at my life over the last 3.5 years, and it does not seem so glamorous like it might seem if you were to visit the hashtag van life. And I don't particularly like the term van life. It's a term that lots of people know, and it's a term that tells people that I live in a vehicle, but I think that's kind of about where the similarities end, because I don't think that my life looks like a beautiful giant Sprinter or ProMaster that is just done gorgeously on the inside and looks fantastic, and I'm taking pictures with my feet hanging out the back on beaches in Mexico. It's just not really the image that my life has. I live mostly in a Honda Element, which is tiny. I live with my dog. It's dirty, it's cramped, it's uncomfortable. And then I also have this car, which for 95% of the time that I've owned it has been not functioning. So, my life just doesn't look like that picture that you see on Instagram. So I want to make that distinction, because when I use the term van life, like in this video later on, or in other videos or video titles or Instagram or whatever, I'm not necessarily talking about that picture perfect Instagram van life, but I am talking about this idea of living in a car. When I talk with people in person, I typically call myself a vehicle dweller rather than a van lifer, because I think that's a more descriptive term for what I'm actually doing. Anyway, just felt like I should get that out of the way so that I could talk about why I choose this life and why I love it. So a little history on how I got kind of started living in vehicles. I was working at Trader Joe's from when I was 18 to when I was 26. I paid my way through college and kind of worked my way up to a manager position in the company, and it was great and I loved it, but I always kind of knew that I didn't want to do it forever. When I was 26, I kind of made the decision that I was going to be leaving the job that year. This was in 2017. I didn't really know what I was going to be doing, but I knew that I wanted to leave at that point. It was a good, healthy time for me to leave. So I just kind of started doing some good old YouTube research and kind of exploring possibilities of what I could do. I had a chunk of money saved up and knew that I kind of wanted to take a break between jobs, and so I just started doing some good old-fashioned YouTube research and exploring my options that way. And I came across the Element Van Life channel. I'm sure probably a lot of you guys follow Nate at Element Van Life, and that was kind of my first encounter with somebody who was living full-time out of a Honda Element. And pretty much as soon as I saw it, it was a no-brainer for me. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I had toyed with the idea of going to Europe or doing some international travel elsewhere, but I have my dog, and that just kind of complicates all those sorts of processes. And so when I figured out that it's pretty possible and even pretty comfortable to live in a Honda Element, I decided that was the way I was going to do it, and I was going to travel for 6 months to a year with just me and Kopek, and that was going to be my life. So I, in a matter of a couple months, got a solar setup. I built a very rudimentary platform in the back of my Element and set off. Kopek and I traveled around for 8 months exploring national parks and all that kind of stuff. And that was my first taste of living in a vehicle. I kind of knew from that experience that I wanted to go back to it or to continue doing it. A work opportunity fell into my lap to live in an Airstream trailer, and I hopped on that, and I spent the next year and a half living in an Airstream and working with Airstreams, which was a super cool opportunity that I'm very grateful for. After about a year and a half, though, I decided to move up to Bend, where I wouldn't be able to have that job anymore, and so I moved back into my Honda Element, as well as purchased the Vanagon that I'm sitting in now. On the way up to Bend, the Vanagon broke down, transmission went out. It was a whole big thing, and it's basically been sitting here in Bend on the lot for a year, and finally was able to repair it a month or two ago, and it's still not like in 100% running order. This is just kind of the way it goes with these sorts of vans. So I still have my Honda Element as kind of like the backup for when, not if, but when this vehicle breaks down again. And I'm probably not going to get rid of the Element until I feel very comfortable with the state of the van. So that's kind of some of the background on why I chose to live in vehicles. But I also want to touch on why I continue to choose to live in vehicles. Kind of the first big reason that I continue to choose to live in a vehicle is that I like the freedom that comes along with it. For me, change is a very good thing. I like it. It's one of those things that helps me feel happy and refreshed and good. And so the prospect of waking up in a new place every day or every few days, the prospect of moving around all the time, for me is something that brings me a lot of peace. That's not true of everyone, but for me it is. And then obviously with living in a vehicle, you sort of have the freedom to go wherever you want, whenever you want. That is not 100% true for me because I do have jobs that require me to be in a specific location here in Oregon, but it does make taking weekend trips or taking trips on my days off a heck of a lot easier. I have everything that I need in my vehicle at any given time, so I can, like that, get up and go somewhere for the weekend. I don't even have to have a plan in place. I can just drive and figure it out. And I love that about it. I've been able to just experience a lot more because I have the mobility that I do have. The second kind of major reason why I continue to choose to live in a vehicle is that I love that it kind of forces my hand in the direction of minimalism. Obviously, this van is not very large. The Honda Element is even less large. So I have just a very limited amount of space in my life, physical space in my life. Like I cannot physically fit things in my life that don't in some way benefit me or bring me joy or provide some value to me. I think where that kind of takes another step is learning that practice of paring down your material possessions kind of carries over to paring down other things and evaluating the value of other things. For example, relationships and opportunities. Those are both things where we constantly evaluate the cost-benefit relationship between things. And I don't think that we by any means have to cut off all ties with any relationships that don't bring us value, but it is helpful and healthy to evaluate those things. And I think that my experience living in a car and having to pare down my material possessions has helped me to kind of fine-tune how I embrace relationships and opportunities. And that kind of brings us to the third and final reason that I'm going to talk about for why I continue to live in a vehicle, why I continue to choose to live in a vehicle. And that is that this lifestyle just seems to present me with a lot of opportunities to pursue my passions, my love, my goals. It's a lifestyle where you meet a lot of new people, and you're constantly changing where you are, who you're seeing, what you're doing. And I think kind of it just goes hand in hand with that you're presented with more opportunities. For me personally, I don't know that I would have been able to get a job working in Airstreams and living in an Airstream if I had not lived in my Honda Element and traveled around prior to that. I don't know if I would have moved to Bend, Oregon if I had not come here first when I was living in my Honda Element the first time around. I don't know if I would have developed a love and a passion for photo and video if I had not had the freedom that I had and gone to places that I went the first time I lived in my Honda Element. And even through that, I have found a couple jobs in the photo and video field. There has just been a surplus of opportunities to do things in fields and areas that I love, or that I'm curious about, or that I'm passionate about. And to me, that has been one of the most valuable things about living in a car. And I hope that continues to stay true for as long as I live in a vehicle, that I am presented with opportunities because of the life that I'm living. So that sort of concludes the portion of this video where I talk about the things that make me continue to choose to live in a vehicle. But I think there are a lot of people that are interested in doing something like that, but there are a lot of obstacles and fears and unknowns that come along with it that hang a lot of people up who would otherwise have probably a very enjoyable life living in a vehicle. So I'm hopefully shortly after this going to be posting another video that talks a little more about why I think you should consider living in a vehicle. And this video is going to be aimed more at people who are maybe already curious about the life, have already considered it, but are hung up on something. While I don't think that this life is something that everybody should do, I do think that it is a life that everybody can do, that you don't need the biggest, fanciest stuff to be able to do this life. So if you liked this video, if you enjoyed the things I talked about, or if they resonated with you in any way, I would love it if you would subscribe or follow along in whatever way you see fit. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video soon.